All right, welcome back to Relationship Remix. I'm your guide and host, Ari Kardosh, and I am so thrilled to have my incredible friend here, Anaya, who has just a wealth of magic with her all the freaking time. Hi, Dee.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm always very excited when you ask me to do these things because
I'm always very excited when you say yes. Like,
yes.
oh yay. So Dee is in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where our family lived for a few months of our days of traveling the road full time with two kids under two. And that was really exciting. And we were in contact like pretty much the whole time we lived there, but we didn't meet until like the last day we were leaving, which was
Yes.
crazy. But we made it happen.
We
And
make it happen. I think this is probably one of the funnest relationships that I've had, honestly.
yes, yes. And how did we first get connected? Remind me, it was Jamin and you, right? Didn't you connect?
Yes, Jamin and Adam and I ran into each other at the mall. And it's because of the littles, actually. My daughter went right up to Avi and was just playing with him. And we sauntered up, and Jamin's like, "Hey, what's up?" And I was like, "Hey, what's up?" And we started having this whole conversation. And then he's like, "I'm going to text you later with my wife." And I was like, "All right, cool." And here we are.
And here we are. And here we
And
are.
here we are.
I would love to give more context besides the fact that you're an awesome mom who brings her kids to the mall and talks with strangers, which I love. Beyond that, I would love to have this whole community meet you in more of your journey context and more of like what you're passionate about context. So there are so many different ways to introduce you, and I would love to just let you introduce yourself and say that the context of today for everybody is how we can integrate play into our relationships. Because I went through, just a quick side note, I went through hundreds of people's, feedback on what their dream relationship would be. And I have to say that so much of it was around fun and passion and being silly and feeling safe to be goofy and being creative. And I'm like, this is all D. This is all D. So, uh, and so I'm just really excited to have you here to talk about all that. But your journey has been so powerful and unique, and I'd love for you to just share a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been a wild it's been a wild ride. So I'm Dee. I am founder and creative guide at Adventures of Grief Girl, and I know that that sounds, wild because grief and adventure don't really go together, but they do go together because every adventure is not about, fun laughs, good times, butterflies, and rainbows. But we can also acknowledge those things while we are grieving. So, um, my main function with Adventures of Grief Girl is to really be a support for bereaved families, particularly bereaved moms, um, because there's so much that kind of gets lost and taken from us, and on top of all of the society constructs that we have, grief on top of that is really a wild experience because all of those things kind of come up. And so I focus a lot on uplifting and helping people reclaim their own story, their own grief story. Like whatever your story is, you have the right to tell it however you'd like to tell it. And if that looks like, burlap sacks marching down the road, that's what it looks like. And if it looks like a grand Taj Mahal, that's also what it looks like. I mean, consequently, I think that's kind of why that Taj Mahal was built out of, you know, love for somebody, their beloved. And so um, that's really, I'm really, really passionate about playing, obviously. I love to play as even on my saddest days, like playing, I really go back to that because it's just built into my life. So I like to help people build play into their lives. And it sounds, wild, but it really is the most natural thing you can do. Honestly, we learn by playing all the time. And, I take a lot of cues from my kids. They are expert at playing. They're experts and they don't have all of the crap that we have hanging on. They don't have that. So like I watch them a lot. I used to teach kids a lot, and being with kids has really informed how I play again now, because it's just without, you know, just without confines and without restrictions, and just go balls out, play as hard as you can, laugh as hard as you can, laugh as loud as you can, enjoy your life. um so on top of that, I'm also an artist, and we're doing installations. My husband, he builds the things that I dream up. So I will have this concept in my mind, and I'll take it to him and I'll be like, so is this possible? And he's, of course it's possible. I'm like, great, let's build it. And so he always is like, I hate when you say things that way. Is it possible? Um, and so because that's how I get him to say yes. So, he's got my number now. So he's like, well, let me slow down here and push the brakes for a minute. But that's how he and I kind of play together. We will, go on these fantastic little journeys through our grief story, and we will pick parts of it to, put out to the world. And right now we don't have anything on deck, but I, am always doing something. So
Yeah. Can you bridge the gap just a little bit? I know a lot about you shared, but I am I want to make sure our audience is tracking. How did you go from, like, how did the Adventures of Grief Girl get started? And did you always just have like something that made you grieve and then you just jumped right into play? Or how did this thing happen?
well, so my background is in dance and musical theater and storytelling and all of those types of things. And so I've always been a performer, and I've always been writing poetry or singing or dancing or working through grief in some sort of way. I've always had some sort of event happen along my lifetime. Um, but I founded Adventures of Grief Girl in honor of my daughter Phoebe, who passed away on Christmas Day in 2013. And honestly, I think that really was the straw that was going to break my back. And I had been away from performing for a long time. I hadn't been dancing, I hadn't been singing or writing poetry. I was busy being a mom and learning a new language and trying to, take care of my daughter. And so when she died, it was like this, it was complete and utter devastation. And I knew that I was never going to go back to corporate work. So that was out. That was like, there's no way that I could function in that manner. And so every day I kind of was just writing, and it just, she showed it to me. She was like, you already do this. And so I just kept doing it, and I have this backlog of things that nobody's ever seen from the early days of my grief journey. And we'll probably publish that a little bit later on this year. But it really kind of seemed like this is how I've always healed myself.
Mm,
By dancing, by making art, by creating, by, telling a story. And now it's my story. So I'm not telling other people's story. I'm telling my own story. And I get
mm,
to do whatever I want to do. I don't have to ask anybody. I don't have to, get it approved or anything like that. I can just really be as honest as I want to be. And I don't have to censor myself. So that was one of the perks of saying, this is helpful to me. I really think it'll be helpful to somebody else. And from there, I went to do life coaching. And then I, met you. And then we just kind of, keep going and building from there. I joined the circus in 2014. I
amazing.
became clown, and I started doing some stilting and on the trapeze. And so play has really just been part of my life, honestly.
Yeah.
And so I never have let go of it, never. And and so it's just kind of the natural way to do things. And when we're not doing that, when I'm not making art, when I'm not really, engaged with the world in this way, that's when things are the hardest. And
Yeah.
every time I come back to playing, everything gets lighter. Everybody kind of in my home gets lighter. Everybody's like, yeah, this
Mm.
hurts, but we're allowed to play and we're allowed to say that it hurts and we're allowed to make art that looks like hell, if you will. And put it in a gallery and call it art and say, and then we get to have these really deep conversations with people who say, you know, um, I've never been able to talk about my grief so openly. And I've like, you've inspired me to write. You've inspired me to start an Instagram story. You've inspired me to do whatever it is they're going to do. And that's really the goal. That's
Mm.
the only thing. Everybody can do this. It's not exclusive to anyone. And we just need to wake that part up and really, kind of take the shackles off of what it's supposed to look like or feel like or whatever. It feels how it feels, it looks how it looks, and this is how you heal.
I love it. I'm gonna pause there for 1 second. And we're back.
And we're back.
All right. So Dee, the question I have for you is I heard you say that that play and creativity is a part of all of us. But
Mhm.
honestly, I work with so many adults who have lost that side of themselves or feel like they don't have any idea how to even tap into that. And one of the things we're talking a lot about in Relationship Remix is it is that there are lots of tips for being in a relationship with your beloved or beloveds, and we're definitely going to look at how can we do that with play. But I really want to keep coming back to the foundation of being in a relationship with others is the foundation of being in a relationship with self. And I'm hearing you talk so much about how play and art has really been a piece of your personal journey and your healing and your understanding of like who you are in this moment. So can you start me off with like how do you personally allow yourself, like not you, if you were working with somebody who wasn't tapped into play or their creativity in that way, right, but it was more of the traditional like, maybe it's very logical cognitive like this side of the brain, right, then how do you help them even begin if the idea of any of this stuff sounds really scary?
Well, it's all very scary. That's that's the first thing. I let people have that scary feeling, and then we do it anyway. So we will try to figure out, okay, so I you may not necessarily be a dancer, or you don't know if you're a dancer, so you could start by taking a class that would never take, and do it with strangers. Don't do it with people you know. Because strangers, they're worried about themselves too. They're not worried about you, they're worried about how they look. So it's like the sweet spot, and we need to leverage that a little bit more in our lives, because it's like talking to a therapist. You can say things to a therapist that you can't necessarily say to your mom
True.
or your spouse or your kid. So, it's using those things and leveraging that for your own benefit. Honestly, if you are really reserved and quiet, maybe take pictures, maybe document, something specific for your life. So I used to do these little photo challenges for 30 days, and I'd give a prompt and folks would just take pictures, or they could write a story, or they could, do whatever they wanted to do, or make a vision book and start collaging. Whatever it is, it's just we have to get the garbage off at the top in
Mm,
order to get to the part where it's just automatic, and that takes practice.
yeah.
You don't necessarily have to go to art school, but you still have to practice. It's just how do you learn anything? You practice. It's a daily practice. It's a ritual. And you don't have to marry it forever. So this is not about an outcome. It's about dealing with whatever you need to deal with for this moment. So 30 days or even 21, because you 21 days to make a habit. So, and then you celebrate that and you put it away and don't even look at it anymore and then go to the next thing. Um, and if it's something you need to protect, don't tell anyone you're doing it. If it's something you need to be accountable for, tell everyone. Because then they're going to ask you, what's that project you were working on? What's that thing you said you were doing? And tell me more about, you know, what this picture means to you. So it's kind of taking the long way around to get people to really check in on you and ask you questions about things that you're doing. And it works really well. It's not like, oh, we need to sit down and have the grief talk. Nah, we will. This is something that's going on for the rest of our lives. This is not something that's going to be one and done. And I'm trying to like reframe that for a lot of people, is that grief is something that we're going to be visiting. And here's some things that you can do to work through whatever it is you're working through.
Yeah.
Go
Amazing.
back to writing your journal. I don't know how many of you wrote in journals, or go back to, playing hopscotch or re-envisioning games with your kids. This is something you can do with yourself, and also something you can do with kids if you have them. Watch them, play with them, let them lead the playing.
Yes. I do a lot of work
And don't
around,
have.
I was gonna say I do a lot
Yeah,
of
go ahead.
work around like helping people get in touch with their emotions again, because there's so much
Mhm.
messaging in that, right? Like you said, like the grief is there. And so like we can, and the fear is there, but the fear of even being creative is there. So just let's be with it and then let's keep going, right? It's like
Yep.
acknowledging that. But who are the best teachers of that? It's our children. Kids are great. They have no problem like unleashing their art all over the walls.
All over. I
Or
have
their
so much
emotions all over the
artwork
floor.
here. We have so much artwork here. And yeah, it's letting go of an expectation. Don't get in it if you need to make an outcome, or if you need to make a living. Don't do it. Don't this is not that.
Yeah.
This is, you can turn it into that later on, but this is not that, and this is not why I do the work. I do the work because it makes me feel good. I know what makes me feel good. So that's the next thing that we do. What makes you feel good? Does it make you feel good to have a cry about the thing that is plaguing you? Does it make you feel tired? How does it make you feel when you are expending the energy on the things? And a lot of times we get caught up in having to defend our grief, or defend our creativity, or defend everything that we're doing. I'm here to say, fuck that. You don't have to defend anything. This is what you are doing. This is where you are. This is how it is. If people don't like it, they can remove themselves. They can moderate themselves. If this is not something that you do, go on, go somewhere else and do what you do. Start a book, start a podcast, do whatever you want to do. Um, so to get out of defense mode and go into like offense or create mode. So this is, and nobody's allowed to touch you there. This is yours. This is your space. And it will evolve over time. So like I said, I started out as a dancer and a photographer and a singer, coming into visual arts and doing painting and drawing, and now I'm ending up like illustrating little things. I never would have thought of that, but had I not let go of the outcome, it's like I have things on my list that I want to do. So that's another thing. You have to have some things that you want to do
Mm.
more than you want to sit around and be miserable about everything else. If there's things you want to do, figure out a way to put those two things together. So, how am I acknowledging my deep grief? How am I acknowledging my depression or my anxiety or whatever? And I feel like the more I acknowledge those things, the lighter they become. They don't go away, they just become lighter. They become things that I can manage now, instead of things that are managing me.
Yeah, and that goes for everything. I just want to like bring it to another like a context I see a lot in relationship. A lot of people are like a fear of X, or a fear of abandonment, or this resentment building. And instead of like running from it, just really being present with it. Like this is what I'm feeling. This is what I desire. And so many people know they don't want, but they don't know what they do want, which
Right.
is challenging. I'm going to pause this for one more second. All right. So one thing you just said that really stuck out to me was that you said you have to have a list of what things you want to do. One of the things I noticed over and over and over again is that people know what they don't want, but they don't often know what they do want. And even if they do know what they want, it's scary to reveal that to your partner sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, I mean, some things it's like, oh, we want to go to Disneyland. Okay, cool. That's very mainstream. We can totally go to Disneyland. But what if there's something that's more personal? Like, how do you share that? So I'm wondering, how do you in partnership or and both, like, let's just do both. You and as your individual self figure out what do you want to do, and then you in relationship, how do you share that, and do you create a list together?
Oh my gosh. Well, we've done a combination of things. I've always been a list maker, and since 25 years ago, I was introduced to The Aladdin Factor by Jack Canfield, and I always recommend that book to people because it's a lengthy, it's a lengthy process, and we can do it down in bite sizes, which is, kind of what I do. Give me a list of 5 things. We don't need to do 155 things, just 5 things. Like, what do you want to do? And it could be the most benign or the most fantastic thing you can possibly think of. So for myself, I just write lists, and honestly, I've had to do this book 3 or 4 times over the years because I just work through this list. Make the list and I put it away. I'll find it and I'll be able to cross off almost everything on the list
Amazing.
and then move on to the next thing. So it's the power of, like, reprogramming your mind to really decide that, these are things that I actually want. These are things that I could actually get. These are things that, might just come strolling down the street. And all I have to do is say yes. So, first it's really reprogramming and thinking that you can actually have the things. That's the first thing. Like going into it with a mentality of I can't have, or you won't have it. You will be correct. You won't,
Yep.
because you're sending it away. You're sending it away. I want to have ice cream 7 days next week. That's a full sentence. Somebody's going to bring me some ice cream 7 days. Somebody, if it's me, if it's my spouse, somebody is I'm going to have this ice cream. So, um, with myself, that's kind of the thing that I do. I just go through the list, like, what do I want? What do I want today? What do I want tomorrow? I don't have to go, for 50 years or whatever. It could be this week. I
Yeah.
could name 100 things that I want to do this week. I might not get to them all, but I could make a list. you
Yeah.
know and then as far as with my spouse, so that was really tricky because of course I was also dealing with, you know, shame, guilt, resentment, like, oh my gosh, I'm in my woman body and I want somebody to smack me on my ass today, but I can't say that to my partner because I don't want him looking at me like that. Whatever it is. Um, but eventually we worked through your book, first of all.
That one?
Relationship agreements, yes, that one behind you. So we worked through that, and it was also getting the partner to do the work. So if the work
Mm,
is one-sided, it's that much harder. If it's a thing that you're doing together, it makes more sense and the context is there, so it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm outgrowing my partner and I need them to catch up. So the expectations, the dreaded downfall of everything is those
right.
expectations of, like, I expect you to do this work. Here's an offering that my friend made. She's really amazing. Got some really cool things in there that I think you'll enjoy. Maybe mark some of the pages. I don't know. I don't know. Learn who you're talking to and then talk to them that way.
Yeah.
um don't talk to them the way you talk to yourself,
Yeah.
because they may not be on that same path. So I know that that's kind of how I had to do things with my partner, is really figure out how he thought and how he ticked and what would make sense to him when I said it, that wouldn't
Yes.
sound like I was attacking him for not doing something, because
Yeah.
he's always doing something, you
Yeah.
know, for the benefit of our home and our family and everything. But when it comes to me, it was like, I've got all my woman issues, and it sounds like I'm nagging when I'm not nagging. I'm just simply saying, I really like this, and I'd really like to try this with you. If I can't try it with you, would you be okay with me trying it with someone else?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they get to decide what the answer to that is.
Yeah. It's
So,
been really fun to watch how people, well, this is a big challenge that comes up a lot in partnership. I often see like one person's really motivated to do something, the other person may not be on board, or at least not to the same extent. So how do you get them on board? And I love that it's like, how do you speak their language? That's really an invitation to them. And that makes sense for the way they think and operate. I remember I had one couple tell me that they really wanted to work through this book, and that how do we do that? Because one person wanted to inhale it and the other person was intimidated by doing a book. And so they created, sexy lingerie reading half an hour, or is like, we're gonna both get into our sexy lingerie and we're gonna read one chapter together once a week and just talk about it. And that's gonna be our cute connection time. And if it goes someplace else, cool. If it doesn't, then we just spent this time connecting in a way that was meaningful to both of them. And so just like, how can you get really creative and break it down in a way that feels juicy to you both without having it be build resentment or put up walls? So I love that you're figuring out ways and encouraging people to explore this.
yes, absolutely. And your book is one of the books that I always recommend because it's just makes so much sense. And that you have Adam and you have Jamin, and you have all these wonderful nuggets in there. And the male perspective is so sorely lacking, I think, in these types of of relationship models that we have grown up with. It's like
Yeah.
we need those voices. We need these divine masculines to speak up, you know,
Yep.
and and bring it, because I want to hear it. As hurtful as some of the things were that my husband had come up with, it was valuable information to me,
Mm,
because it told me a lot about what was going on in his head. And granted, there was a lot of it that wasn't actually going on. It was more of, this is how I perceive it because I'm feeling
uh-huh.
XYZ. Aha. Okay.
Aha.
Here we are. Now there it is. And so, like, making those discoveries is worth everything. It's like that's everything. So make those discoveries no matter how scary it is. And also, don't be afraid to acknowledge if your mission is complete with this person.
Mm, yeah.
That's that was one of the heavy things in our relationship. It was like, maybe we need to acknowledge that our mission is complete. Is that it, or is it something else? And
Mm,
here we are still again. Our mission is not complete.
yeah.
So we get to go on, we get to keep going, we get to be in the bonus round. He has come to take some circus classes with me to really kind of get into my world too. So,
Yeah.
it isn't just me pushing myself on in his land and what he does with the building and things. It's more of, we kind of, move back and forth with each other. Like, I'm going to learn to do some woodwork, and he's going to come do some circus with me, and we're going to let the kids jump on the bed with Prince turned up as loud as we possibly can to, kind of laugh together. And we just did that the other night. And then, it's the freedom is it's coming, and it takes a lot of
Yeah.
energy. And so you may have to retract your energy from other places to put it all where you want it to be anyway, which
I love
is
that. So
your
true. So true. I,
relationship.
I've never heard somebody say to see if we've what did you just say, that if our mission is complete? I love that. So many people, I mean, so I think most people are raised in a culture where you're supposed to know how to be in a relationship, and so you don't get support until you're like on the verge of divorce, right? And
Hmm.
there's no proactive thought in how do we actually learn how to do this thing that's really effing hard, that if we're really honest with ourselves, we don't have any great models. Like most of us didn't grow up with great models. So yeah, and yeah, there's this like story of I'm gonna be good at it. This thing that I've never seen really done well. I'm gonna be good at it, right?
Right.
It's really funny to me. I'm like, isn't this weird? Anybody else? Like we didn't
Right.
school.
And I think that's exactly what has saved us is that we both looked at the relationship model and we're like, this is fucked up. Like this,
It's
we're not
fucked
supposed
up.
to be doing this. This doesn't feel natural.
Yeah.
And when we both started to say yes to things that felt more natural to us, we immediately got happier. Like
Yes.
immediately. Like the changes
Yes.
were immediate. It wasn't it does take time, but those really important ones, once you are able to say with safety and you know this person's not going to walk away from you, you know they're not going to resent you for saying it, and it's not about, oh, you did a bunch of things that I don't like, can you change?
Mhm.
It's we're both doing a bunch of shit we both don't like.
Yep.
And we need to do something new or we need to call it quits. That's
Yeah.
and it's nothing personal. Like
Yep.
neither one of us know how to do this and we didn't have those models like you said. And
Yeah.
so,
But the
you know,
idea of even having that conversation is so huge. I want to get back to play in a moment, but I have to just like speak into this for a second. It is amazing to me the number of times people come to me and they're like, "Oh, I want to work with you so that we can get even. We're falling apart and we need to get stronger." And then they find that they actually are ready to shift. I call it the relation shift into this mission is complete. And okay, now what? And it's not a failure. It's okay. Now it's owning where you're at. And then there are other times when people come and they're like, "We're ready for a relationship," and I'm like, "Okay, cool. Let's do the shift. Like, let's talk about how we can navigate untangling everything." And through that process, they discover that the freedom of untangling some of the mess creates an even deeper bond. And they're like, "Oh, now we have this blank canvas and all the wires are untangled." And when we untangled all that crap that we made, we actually really love each other. And now we have the freedom to create new art together in a way that we didn't even expect. We thought we were just going to be done. And now it's deeper with more there to play with, which is really amazing. So you
yes.
never know what you're going to get, but even having that conversation, being courageous enough and honest with yourself enough to say, yeah, like let's have this talk. Are we done? Are we needing to shift into something else, a friendship or whatever it may be? It's
Mhm.
just so bold. So okay, I just want to honor you for that. It's huge. It's huge. And what I want to do is say, okay, now let's get in some like invitations for folks. So
Oh, yes.
straight up, if you have people who are in relationship, things are like meh, they're just meh, and it's time to spice things up a little bit. Where do you even begin to integrate play if you there is no real play anymore? I mean, play means like going to see a comedy movie, right? Like if that's their level of play, how do you even begin to invite it more creativity and playfulness into your relationship?
Well, what just hit me right now is basically doing some cosplay. If you movies are your favorite thing, pick one of them favorite films and do some cosplay with one of a set of the characters or do cosplay in general. I love a good costume. So
Uh-huh. I'm like, you do love a good costume.
I do. I do love a good costume. But yeah, doing cosplay together. And like it doesn't necessarily have to be sexy cosplay either. You could just, dress up like Star Trek characters. Who cares?
Yeah.
Um, do what you love, like things that you just love. And the way we played when we were kids can really be the same way we play now, but we're adults and we have nobody telling us we can't or shouldn't, except for
Yeah.
ourselves. We're the only people in the way. And so, play how you want to play. How did you play when you were a kid? Answer that and then see how that translate. How did you play when you were a teenager? What were the fun things that you used to do? So was that sitting on your roof drinking beer after hours looking at the stars? That's playing. Like go
Yeah.
do that. If was it sneaking behind the bleachers to snog with your bestie, go do that. Find those moments to do that and do it in 5 minutes or less. It doesn't have to be like this 10-hour date or whatever. 5 minutes is great. 5 minutes is a really long time to be on stage.
Yeah,
so, so
it is.
and you can expend a lot of energy in 5 minutes or less. And then, you're an adult now. Imagine that you don't have any limits. What is something that you think would be fun for you?
Yeah.
What feeling are you trying to evoke? Find it. It'll find you basically, and you say yes. And then, starting to say yes more often and generating that momentum to be in the mindset of playing is always, you need momentum to do it. So we need these little tiny wins. And that's why I say the 5 minutes. Just, go make out with call it your husband, your boyfriend, or your spouse, or your partner, or whatever. Call them your lover or whatever. Write them the nastiest notes you could possibly think of. They're the only ones that's going to see it, you know? Um, we do a lot. I wanted to circle back to that part where you were asking of like how we can say things to the partner. Do it in writing. Do it in writing and say we're going to write these letters to each other between this time, and I'll give it to you, and you have a week or two to return my letter or whatever, and just leave it for me under my pillow or something like that. And that's
Yeah.
how, Adam and I did a lot of our communicating back in the day, where it was really too hard for me to say things out loud without being taken, either not seriously, or it was offensive, or it was too heavy. It was, you read this whenever you have some time, sit with it. And it's a space where you get to say everything that you have to say without interruption.
Mm,
So take advantage of that, or make a video even.
yeah.
So yeah, do all the playing. I have a playlist for to share with you all too.
Ah,
One
yeah.
that I like to do is shake my ass. So
Yeah.
I have made a playlist for everybody to do some shaking to. And because it's so important to move grief and any emotion really through your body. And dancing is a really free and great way to do that. Like
Yeah.
everybody pretty much has access to music. And so, start with dancing. You have that tool with you all the time. So move your body, dance like nobody's watching. Nobody is, because nobody's watching. And everybody's worried about what they look like. So you are free, like
You're
free and
free.
clear to you are free and clear to be wild. Just do that.
I love it. I love it. And one of my favorite things to do is there's something powerful about music from different points of your life, right? So I can remember going clubbing
Mhm.
in the early years of college, and like there are certain songs where you turn that on, and man, the the most
Beat,
scandalous
yep,
moves
that
just
beat
start
drop
coming
is
out of me,
gonna
right?
help.
I'm like, oh yeah. And so
Yes.
it's really fun when you just like put it on. Like, for myself, I love to put it on, but then it's also really fun to play with your partner and be like, this song I used to get so raunchy to in clubs. Let me show you. I
Mhm. Let
Mama
me
still got
show
it.
you. Yes. Yep, we do a lot of that. We do a lot of that because dancing was such a big part of my life, and I miss that so much. So, this last year in COVID, every morning I've been doing my little ritual dance shaking, and it's been
Mm,
great.
so good. I was thinking about other ways that we've looked for how can we introduce play? And one of the resources that I love, and now I don't know what things are like right now with COVID and all the things, but Groupon and all those other types of like, hey, there's a discount on doing this thing. It was just so helpful for ideas. And even if you are not going to those places, a lot of times they inspired ideas that you could actually recreate at home. Like I remember
Hmm.
there's this place where you could go and you could just break shit. Like, you pay for like a half an hour and you go in, you get
Yes.
like tons of china and you just go in and you smash it and you get a baseball bat and you smash computers, right? And it's like, actually, there's a junkyard down the road. We can just go there. We can just go pick up some
Well,
stuff and just go there. This would be amazing. So, anyways, like
it
how?
is amazing.
Yes,
Just like that, we have an abundance of garbage, so we take it to the dump and we're throwing it, and that's our angry art, basically. And there's
I
a,
love it.
a friend of mine, she likes to smash ornaments around Christmas time, and so just like anything, like
Yeah.
all of those things are really really fun. Right now I haven't been doing a lot of research because of COVID, and so everything's kind of online to do. um but yeah, looking for those opportunities and saying, hey, you know what, this is something maybe I haven't done, and I maybe want to check it out, whether it's by yourself. Take yourself on a date, go check out the thing. If you want to include your family later, do that later, but take care of you first and then take
Yes.
everybody else. Take care of your anger first, take care of your grief first, take care of your resentment, all of those things. Take care of those things first, and then you can help everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. There's I don't know if I've ever admitted this on a video yet. So here we go. But Jamin and I both do a lot of practice around emotional release. We've just really learned the power of this tool over the past year or two. And it's really fascinating to see. And basically the idea is we take self-responsibility and we tune into what emotions are there. And then if things need to be released, we do that. And we have like 7 different tools we use from something called ISTA we love. And one of them is smashing pillows. And most of my clients know this. We do it together. We smash pillows with our forearms like this, or we do a hand scream where we like cover our mouth and we just scream. And if it's so much, it feels so good to release it. But we have learned that it's waves, right? That our emotions, when we're in a healthy state, our emotions are waves. They come and they go. They don't stay with us forever. And if we ride the wave, we surf it, it's over more cleanly and it feels really like releasing and nourishing instead of draining. And it's really powerful. So we've started being super radical around this of how can we ride the wave even in the moment. So we might be together, we might be like sitting on the bed trying to have some intimate moment and it's just not working, right? Like sometimes it just doesn't work. and
Yeah.
and I'll notice that like I want to like take control or he like something, I just feel like something's not happening that I want it to. And we're to the point now where we're just like, I need 2 minutes to do some emotional release, and I'll literally just turn around and start smashing a pillow. And because we've integrated this, and we've given each other permission, and we know that we're just taking care of ourselves, it's not like he could in the past, he could have been like, oh my God, I did something wrong, or screw her for wanting to like do this during our sexy time and not just figuring out the answer, right? But the answer is I'm with my emotions and we can trust each other in that. So it's really fascinating. I mean, if somebody hit a camera in our bedroom, they'd be like, what the fuck? What are the fuck are these two doing? But it'd be like, okay, we're trying to connect. One of us might do some emotional release. The other person's like, oh yeah, I'm feeling it too. Like I'm not angry at her. I'm angry at the situation. So then they're smashing a pillow and screaming. And 30 seconds later, we're like laughing or crying and being like, oh my God, I'm so glad that moved. And now at the heart of all that disconnect was that we'd really just desire to be connected. And now we're more open and we can be there, which is really fun. And in many ways, it is a form of play. Who else gets to smash pillows and scream? Like it is so wonderful. And sometimes it turns into pillow fights, and sometimes it turns into
Mhm.
wrestling, and sometimes it just turns into amazing conversation that we wouldn't have had because that's not what we're supposed to be doing in the bedroom, right?
Right.
So juicy. You don't
Right.
know what's going to happen when you open yourself up to breaking the old patterns.
Exactly. And it's, you have to figure out what your patterns are. You have to be able to acknowledge the patterns. You have to be able to be like, well, we're going to go ahead and smash this pillow and maybe forego the sexy time. Or for me, I find that it's just really sexy to be able to acknowledge those things, and I feel more
Yeah.
comforted and more loved, and like the space is more open for me to really just be in whatever place I'm in emotionally and not have to hold space for having sex or being turned on in that way. um so it does work down the line, eventually, because because I trust that he's not going to be upset with me because we couldn't have sex today. It's, yeah, maybe we couldn't, but friend, you have a hand, you call somebody something. Take
Yeah.
care of yourself so I can take care of myself, or whatever. And it's not necessarily I need you to take care of me. Let me take care of me for a moment, and then I
And
can
now
be
it's
free to like be open to do all this other stuff.
yes. Yes. There are two other things I want to just slide in there before we wrap up. That came to mind. One is a resource for people if you are looking at ways you can mix things up intimately, but you don't know where to start. You can Google yes, no, maybe lists. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
put a link to one of my favorite resources. It's through Self Serve Toys in Albuquerque, New Mexico. They put together a really great list of many different lists of yes, no, maybe lists. And there are lots of different styles of doing this, but basically you could choose one. They've got like kinky ones and more like mainstream ones, and you find out what feels good to you. And this is a dialogue point. And so you could, if it feels safe and appropriate with the person you're currently with, you could print a copy of one of them for both of you, and you go through and you might say, like a thing that you might be open to, like French kissing, and it's like yes, no, or maybe. And then I always add the column for under conditions if it's maybe, right? So I'd be like French kissing, and I also like to decipher yes and no of giving and receiving. Yes, I'm open to giving a tongue. Yes, I'm open to receiving a tongue. No, I'm not open to giving a tongue. No, I am not open to receiving a tongue. Right. So giving and receiving. And
Mm-hmm.
then the maybe is under certain points. So I might be like, yes, I'm open to French kissing and receiving the tongue if I had a shot of tequila first, right? That'd be it's not really mine, but
Condition.
or if it was the full moon, I don't know. So,
Right.
so it's like, what are your conditions? And you can put it out there. And then what's really fun is you can look for the joint. You can look at where are we both a yes, and
Mm-hmm.
that's your starting point. Where are you both a yes? Now, depending on, I have had people say, oh, but that's really vulnerable for me to share. What if I say I'm open to something and they're whoa, that's too much information. I had no idea you'd ever say yes to that thing, right? Then there are some out there that you could find that are more like programmed where they'll match up if you're both yeses, which is kind of cool. I also have used a mediator before and said, hey, can you look at both of our quizzes and find the joint yeses? So there's lots of ways to do it, but you have to also trust your mediator to like know
Yes.
what your interests are in the bedroom or whatever. Um, the other thing I wanted to share was around making a list of things to play. You mentioned making a list. Can you just give us some inspiration of other things that you two have done that would be things that we were like, oh, I'd never considered that, or things you've heard of people doing? Where just give us some inspiration, be our muse of what are some things that we could
Mm.
do to be playful together.
Well, very recently I don't know if I can say this out loud, but
You
we
can
dropped
say
some
anything
acid
you want.
and so we took some acid together and it was amazing. And then we and honestly, and I think people should, use their discretion and figure out what works
Yes,
for them,
please.
their bodies or whatever. But I definitely notice a difference where it's like neither one of us have the restrictions. So we
Mm,
could just say everything like, oh, I like this, I want that, I've really been thinking about that. And so like, and it's not like being drunk where you're gonna forget. Like this goes with you. So like you've said this out loud, and then the next day when you're not tripping, it's still there and it's still like, hey, noted.
yeah.
We
Uh-huh.
might be able to find, you know, an avenue to work one of those things in. We joined an adult play group together, and we've done the erotic blueprints. I'm getting trained right now to do the coaching for erotic blueprints. So, um,
That's
and
awesome.
that's been really beautiful and helpful too. So we should link for the quiz for everybody here to take the quiz
Yes.
because
It's
it's
in
just
from yesterday's interview with Dee and Steven, because she's also an erotic
okay.
blueprints quiz. I have a theme of people I love in my life. It's like erotic blueprints,
Yes,
emotions.
yes, yes, exactly. And that was one of those things that was gifted to me. Honestly, like a friend of mine is a coach now, and it came up that there was a spot open, and she's like, I think that this is for you. And immediately, and I learned about erotic blueprints from you, and so immediately I was like, fuck yeah, I want that.
I want
So
that. I want
I
that thing.
want that. And so I'm gonna go get that. And so
Yeah.
it's incredibly opening for the both of us, like doing
Mm,
the work. And I get to share the work with him and I get to do my homework with him. Um, and because we know each other and it's really a lovely practice
yeah.
now that we are building with each other. So it's not just me building it, it's he's, hey, you know what, I'm a maybe about that, I don't really like that, and I'm not offended. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, cool, you don't like that, great, I know what not to do to you next time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
I love it. I
we're
love it. And I think one other thing that I wanted to just share, like I hear that you had this idea and you spoke into it. And and it's really cool you're sharing the more serious ideas and you're sharing the more goofy ideas. I was just thinking my birthday was it was a couple weeks ago, and a couple weeks, it was last week. Oh my gosh, it was
that was
last week.
that was that was on my anniversary.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. But a couple of weeks ago, my husband surprised me at the beginning of the month, the birthday getaway. We went to this amazing resort, and I walked into the room and it says "Happy Birthday," and they've got a cake and stuff. And I don't eat a lot of gluten, dairy, or sugar, and so the cake was all those things. And but I was like, well, it's my birthday, I'll have a bite. And literally, this thing tasted like plastic. I was like, I don't even know if this is like safe to eat. Like, I'm not sure. And our default mode at this point, because we do try to be curious and playful, was not, okay, well, that sucks, throw it away. Was, okay, well, what else can we do with this, right?
What else can we do with
What else
it?
can we do? Okay, well, this situation could be sucky. Well, what else can we do with this? Next thing you know, we're in the shower and we are making art all over each other and doing a photo shoot with cake all over, butts and nipples and things, right? And it's like, and,
Mhm.
and at least one Facebook appropriate picture, right? It's just on my face. But it's like, how do you start to shift this mindset from we're stuck, this sucks, to okay, well, what else can we do with this? What else do with this whole
What else
situation?
can we do with this? I'm a fan of using everything you have to make do.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of our art is from recycled materials. Our chicken coop is made out of one of my art installations and stuff. So like we are
I love it.
really, really all about that life of what else can we do with this. And so, a sensory activity that we like to do is putting our hands or our body parts in things while we're blindfolded. That was also one of
Yes.
your tips too.
Yeah.
And we've just kind of taken that and run with it. Like every once in a while, I'll just walk up to him with something and like,
Yes. I
and
do believe you're the I'm gonna out you. I do believe you are the couple who got spaghetti dumped all over themselves in the
yes,
kitchen while you were naked. Uh-huh.
yes,
Yep. Yep.
yes,
Yep. That was
right there in
yep.
our kitchen. Like spaghetti just dumped all over my body, and I was like, I don't know if I like this, but
But
I
here we
like
are.
it. But here we are.
By the way,
I have
I know this because this was one of the date. I
yes.
did not assign dumping spaghetti on naked bodies in the date, just to be clear.
No,
But
he
it was
ran away
through the Great
with
Date
that.
Escape, which was so cool. And I'm so like, I just loved watching how you guys took the instructions I gave you for how to go on a date and just made it your own every single time. I'm like, oh my God, so cool.
Because that's what we do. That's
That's
just
what you
what we
do.
do. We have, we get a little outline and then we're like, how can we do it
Yeah,
for us?
I love
And
it.
so that's the important thing. It's, yeah, you'll get a set of instructions and I could tell you to the T what to do, but you'll have more fun if you figure out how it works for yourself. Definitely work in some self-pleasure time though, daily, 5 minutes, 5 minutes.
5 minutes. I
It's
love
all
it.
it takes. It's fine. That's one of my things that over this last year that I have definitely been committed to is to taking myself pleasure time and deciding what I like
I love it.
and like trying things on myself. Like before I let anybody do anything to me, I need to do it to myself.
Yes, I love that. I
And
love that
so
guy.
that's one of the things that I will challenge you all to do is to figure out truly what pleasures you and um don't hold back. you're with you all the time.
Yes, 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 you are. All right, my dear, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for talking to us about everything. Is there any closing thoughts you didn't get to share? And how can we follow you and be a part of your world?
Well, you can follow me at Adventures of Grief Girl, which I'll put a
I'll
link,
put the
and
link in again.
then my one of my longtime dear friends and I are we produced a podcast this year, and we are about 6 episodes in, and we have 3 bonus episodes, so you could do a lot of catching up on that. It's called Grief After Dark, and I have an oracle group, which if you like tarot cards, hit me up. I'm happy to talk tarot and magic with you at any time. And then, this weekend I have a show opening up on Friday with a spectacular artist here in Santa Fe, and hopefully, we'll look out for that. But my closing, I just really wish all of you to become that love that you want to have and just consistently generate it. Um, just be the generator of those things, and it takes a bit of practice because you have to know what you love and what you like, and and to tap into that all the time.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dee.
Thank you so
Such a
much.
joy having you here.
It's my pleasure.
Have an amazing night, and thank you so much for your time and
Thank
your
you so
wisdom.
much.
Mwah.
I love you.
Love you too. Bye.